Are you ready to embark on a journey of exploration and unlock the magic of your wonder? There is so much more in the universe than we have been shown. It is time to ask those questions, dissolve those barriers, and embrace your extraordinary life. Here is your fellow explorer in the realm of curiosity and discovery, with almost 20 years of inviting people to embrace the greatness of them, Donnielle Carter.
Hello, welcome everybody to the Exploration of Wonder. I am your host and fellow explorer, Donnielle Carter, and I know it's not the topic today, but just a quick tip. If you're about to go live, don't spill your drink. Or don't almost spill your drink. That would have not been the best, funnest way to start this show. But welcome to the show, you guys. I am Donnielle. I am a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. I am a laughter change agent, intuitive empowerment coach, your cheerleader, whatever it is. I hold so many different titles, and basically it's just, I'm in your corner, my friends. Whether it's in a podcast like this, whether it's a private session, or one of the many workshops and classes I hold online or live, I'm in your corner. I will always be your biggest fan and help you to achieve whatever it is that you are desiring. So, I am curious to, the name of the show is called The Exploration of Wonder. So I'm curious what you wonder about. If there's some topic that you would like to see me explore, see us explore on this, please reach out to hello@donnielle.com, DONNIELLE.com, and let me know what you're wondering about, because that's the whole purpose of this is, what are you wondering about? What are we wondering about? Because it's only through those questions of, I wonder about this, do we actually find the difference, explore the universe, uncover things, reveal secrets, and, change the world, and change our worlds. All right, so that's hello@donnielle.com, and let me know what you are wondering about and what we can explore. All right, so what we are exploring today is actually one of my favorites, and I know I say that all the time. It should just be, part of my pictures somewhere. It's like Donnielle Carter, one of her favorites. Which one? All of them, because it is. But this is one of my favorite topics because honestly, it comes up a lot. Primarily in my private sessions, but also in my classes, in person or online. And because I have helped thousands of people with this, and I don't say that lightly, I'm not exaggerating. I've been doing this for rounding the corner to 17 years, which, how did that even happen? I know time isn't real, but wow, right? Anyways, so what am I talking about? What is something that comes up a lot in private sessions and a lot in classes, and that I've helped thousands of people with, is the power and the necessity of acknowledgement. Okay? Self-acknowledgement, acknowledgement of others. But this is something that has been dynamically underrated in the universe, in our universe. Okay? We have not been taught to do this. Okay? We have not been taught to acknowledge. We have not been given permission. We have not been shown or even allowed to acknowledge ourselves. We've been shown and expressly told only to acknowledge other people, because if we do acknowledge ourselves, we're told we're being egotistical or selfish or grandizing. It's like, oh, well, you think a lot of yourself, don't you? Right? Anybody else heard that? Yeah, we've all heard that. Or we've heard other people be accused of it, so we're like, I'm not even going there. What's special about you? Nothing. I'm just sitting here, right? They're like, somebody's like, well, what's unique about you? Nothing. And it was really interesting because this is actually one that's really true to my heart. Because, I just mentioned I'm rounding the corner of 17 years of doing coaching in various forms. And so I've been interviewed a lot. And one of the things they always ask me is like, okay, so what do you have to say? Or what is it about you? Or what would you like to say about yourself? Tell little people a little bit about yourself, right? It's like the death knell. Tell the little people about yourself. I'm like, my name's Donnielle and I'm no one special. I'm just like everybody else, because we were taught that. And so I have had to really dynamically overcome this. And that drinking game I always like to say, every time I say energy, take a shot. But it's like, it's all about the energy. Okay. And that's the part that we're going to explore today. Because I'm not saying that if you can self-acknowledge that that you haven't seen people who are self-aggrandizing or bragging or boasting. Yeah, it's a whole different energy. And that's kind of what we're going to explore today. And we're going to explore the whys of why self-acknowledge. What happens when we do? What happens when we don't? And then also what occurs when we truly, genuinely acknowledge others. Because I think that genuine part of it is kind of lost, okay? So we have a lot in store for this one, so stick around because it's going to be a lot of fun. And who knows? You might even be able to self-acknowledge yourself for something today. I hope so. Because trust me, my friends, it makes so much of a difference in the world. All right, so back to the beginning. We have not been taught to self-acknowledge, right? Have any of you ever been told you're being egotistical, or you think highly of yourself, or, well, you like to brag, when you're just like, I just told you I accomplished something, and I'm not bragging, I thought I was sharing. I'm sorry I shared, I won't share with anyone. All that goes on in our heads, right? We just go, okay, it'll go away, right? Oh my gosh, we have not, like I said, we've not been taught this. And what's interesting is we're also going to explore, because a lot of people think they need permission to do this. So I'm just going to get that one out of the way. You have permission. Okay. I joke, but what's sad is I know a lot of people are waiting for permission, that it's okay to self-acknowledge. Okay. Yeah, so what is, I have a definition here. I moved my notes around. The original definition of acknowledge is to admit or show one's work. And I find this interesting because we have been taught that self-acknowledgement is a bad thing. But really at the basis, acknowledgement is just admit or show one's knowledge, show one's work. What have you accomplished, right? We should be able to be like, guess what? I did this or had this or whatever. And I would love to say, my friends, that I am not prone to this occasionally myself, of the avoidance of it, because I actually ran into it yesterday. I was talking with one of my oldest friends. We have been friends for like 7 years, a long time. And we were talking about a third friend of ours who's getting into the coaching business. And so she was like, hey, maybe you guys want to partner up and do this, conversation. And I was actually telling her about an upcoming summit, and then maybe she would want to be on it, and and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, hey, during these summits, that is produced by Inspired Choices Network, just by the way, they actually take your talk and turn it into a chapter, and so you get to be published as well. And she's like, oh, well, she was just published. Isn't that exciting? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, crap, how can one of the closest people in my life know that I haven't been published twice in the past year? I'm like, wow. And I didn't say anything, because how many of us at that moment go, well, if I turn around and go, well, I've been published twice in the past year, then it's competition or boastful or bragging instead of that acknowledgement. See, but there's two folds to that. I didn't do it then, so she still doesn't know. I didn't do it then because I didn't want to, what I thought was, diminish this other friend of ours' accomplishments. And I didn't want to seem competitive or bragging or like trying to outdo this other person. And nor did I ever originally tell one of this oldest friends of me, my life, that I've been published in the past twice in the past year. And it's not that I've like, oh, it's just no big deal. No, it's fun, right? I've been published twice in the past year. So I've been published 3 times. How exciting. More books are coming. I know she doesn't know that either because I haven't said it. And so it was very interesting to be like, oh, isn't this interesting that this comes up the day before I know I do this call? But how many of us live our lives that way? How many of us go through hiding parts of ourselves so that we don't think we diminish others, or so we don't seem boastful or bragful? Okay, so the original definition of acknowledge is admit or show one's knowledge. Okay, nothing wrong with that. It's just when we add judgment to it, right? Because if you think, here's the thing, if you think as you're saying this stuff about if you think you're being superior or better, then that's the judgment, right? And that's more in line with the boasting or bragging that I keep talking about. And this is what we've been taught that all acknowledgement is that it's boastful or bragging. It's not true. Sorry, that's just not true. And I had the definition of boastful. Wow, I don't know where it went. I had the definition of boastful, and if I find it in my notes, that's fine, but it's basically like, I think I'm better than you, right? And so, yeah, if in the conversation I had with my friend yesterday, if I had turned around and gone, well, I've been published twice. And I've been doing it longer than her, so I should be published. I can't believe she's been published, and she's been only doing it for like a year and a half. Then you're a jerkwad. Okay, that's not the energy of acknowledgement and self-acknowledgement that I'm talking about. But we should be able to go to one of my oldest friends, go, guess what? I was published. I was published twice, or I was published, and oh look, I'm published again. And I have seen her. She lives here in the same state with me. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I just never saw her, so I never got a chance. No, I've seen her many times, and I'll see her next weekend. So I may tell her that. We'll see. But how many of us, we've been taught that's what it is, right? But you have to self-acknowledge. Let me tell you why. What happens when you self-acknowledge? And remember, acknowledgement is just that celebration. I call it celebration a lot. It'll be like, celebrate that you did this, had this, whatever, and we'll get into all of that. But when you self-acknowledge, when you're able to go, look what I did. Remember the original definition, admit or show one's knowledge. So you're like, look what I learned, look what I did, look what I accomplished, look what I have. Isn't this amazing? When you're truly doing it from the place of, look, I did this, we could all do this. Isn't this fun? Look what I created. The energy expands, okay? This is what happens when you do self-acknowledge. The energy expands. You build from what you have instead of trying to restart all the time. And I'll get more into energy about that. Your capacity builds. Your potency builds. That's where the power comes in, okay? You shine bright, and you are an invitation to others. I mean, you don't like shine so bright that you're like, I'm amazing. No, you just shine bright. Haven't you ever seen those people, they walk through the world and they're just a ray, they call them ray of sunshines, right? You just feel better being in their presence, okay? They shine bright, you shine bright, and you're an invitation to others. And you embrace that. Here's the key word. Here's one of the keys. When you are able to self-acknowledge, you embrace that you, yes, you are the creator of your life and your universe. Because I know that's one of the problems with self-acknowledgement is we are being told repeatedly that other things are the creators of our lives and our universe, that we're just the effect of everything, that we're like the pinball in the pinball machine getting batted around, right? Our parents are, society is, leaders are, education is, nurture, nature, whatever it is. We're so often told that other things are the creators of our lives and universe instead of us being the creators of our lives and our universe. Well, you know what? That's not true. I mean, it's a great way to keep us suppressed, and it's been working for generations and lifetimes, but you know what? No more. We are choosing something else different now. And it begins with this self-acknowledgement, which is why we're going to go on to our first break. When we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens when we don't acknowledge and really begin to show why it is a necessity that we do self-acknowledge. All right? I know it was such a tease. I learned from my mama. She did the radio show since I was 12 years old. And she was always like, lead with a tease, tell them what they're going to get when they come back, and invite them to come back. So I invite you to come back after this brief commercial break, and you are watching The Exploration of Wonder with me, Donnielle, your host and fellow explorer of the wondrous world that we are. And you are watching or listening on the Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back.
Ever feel like there's more to life than meets the eye? A sense of wonder just beyond your grasp? Are you ready to create a life that inspires you so much that each day you are excited to wake up and live it? Join Donnielle Carter, a nationally board-certified health and wellness coach, weekly as she explores the universe on the exploration of wonder. Explore everything from harnessing the power of your mindset to connecting with your intuition and harnessing the energetic forces around us. With a blend of humor, warmth, directness, and a dash of cheekiness, Donnielle shares easy-to-use, pragmatic, yet magical techniques you can implement immediately to infuse your life with wonder. Join us as we navigate the fascinating landscapes of the seen and unseen, and together create lives filled with joy, purpose, and boundless possibility.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Exploration of Wonder with your guide, Donnielle. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to hello@donnielle.com. Now back to the exploration.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Exploration of Wonder. I am your host and fellow explorer, Donnielle. And if you are watching me, hi, I'm the person on your screen. And if you are listening on one of the many other podcast areas, I am the voice in your head, which isn't as scary as it sounds, I hope. Anyways, welcome to The Exploration of Wonder. Today we are exploring the power and the necessity, or the necessity and the power of self-acknowledgement. All right, so we've been taught that acknowledgement is boastful bragging. That makes it is always that they think that you are thinking you're superior or that you are better than other people somehow. And so we've really been taught to shut up. Don't say anything about ourselves. Don't say what's amazing, what we've accomplished. Just sit there and just keep going. And, you know, I keep saying, not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but maybe I am a conspiracy theorist, you know? Hello, my name is Donnielle. I'm a conspiracy theorist. But can it be a theory if it's actually true? Anyways, but why I say this is because it's like, how many ways can we be suppressed? How many ways can we be stopped? How many ways can unconsciousness and anti-consciousness tell us to sit up, shut up, sit down, don't step up, don't be great, and don't change the world because we're in control of it. So sit down and shut up. Well, you know what, my friends? No more. No more will we bow to being the unconsciousness and the anti-consciousness. And this self-acknowledgement is one of those first steps a lot of us can take. All right, so before the break, I was talking about what occurs when we do acknowledge. And acknowledge, the original definition, is that admit or show one's knowledge. Admit what you know. Hello, how bad can that be? Apparently very bad. Because one way to keep us, like I said, suppressed is to not actually share with people what you know. Even if it's not sharing with yourself, which is really a cute trick, but we do that. So, and, we've been taught that most of the time it's, if we do say anything about us, that it's boastful or bragging. I found the original definition for boastful that I was looking for in the first segment. Somehow it had disappeared from my notes, so I just went and got it again. But the original definition for boast is arrogance, presumption, pride, and vanity. Yeah, that's more of what I'm talking about, like if you're being boastful or bragging, right? That's that energy of like, I am superior. And using that example from the telephone call with one of my oldest friends yesterday, if I had gone, oh, she's been published once, I've been published 3 times, twice in the past year. Yeah, then you're being a jerkwad. Then you're being the boastful, the bragging, and you're just being no fun. But if I had just gone to this woman at any time and gone, guess what? I just got published. I was in a summit and they made a book out of all the talks, and look, here it is. She would have been like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. We should celebrate. But I didn't do any of that because we've been taught not to. I didn't even do a social media post about it. That'll be changing too, my friends. Trust me. I learned this stuff all along too. All right. So just as a quick recap, we talked about what happens when you do acknowledge, okay? The energy expands. The energy, your energy, all the energy of the creation of you, it expands. Then you build from what you have instead of trying to restart all the time. Your capacity builds, your potency builds, your power builds, and you shine brightly, and you are an invitation to others. You embrace that you are the creator of your life and your universe, okay? We talked about that a lot in the first segment. So what happens when you don't acknowledge? This is where most of us function from. Isn't it fun? Here we go. What happens when you don't self-acknowledge? You play small. You don't step up. You suppress yourself. You suppress the energy. You have less of you. And that seems like simple words, and it is, but it's huge. When you don't self-acknowledge, you have less of yourself. Because when you are hiding, which is another thing that occurs when you don't self-acknowledge, you hide. But you know what? You also have to hide from yourself. You don't just hide from the universe or other people, you also hide from yourself, okay? So in that way, you have less of who you are. Anybody ever asked you, it's like, well, who are you? I don't know. Well, maybe you might have some kind of idea if you weren't always trying to hide, right? So what else happens when you don't self-acknowledge? The energy contracts, okay? And you have to constantly reboot and refresh. How many of us always feel like we're starting over, right? And we even do that. It's like, I'll start Monday. I'll start over now then, right? We put a timeline on it. I'll start Monday. I'll do this. So we are constantly, when we don't self-acknowledge, we're constantly rebooting or refreshing or restarting. That's exhausting, right? Your potency contracts and you diminish and dim. You dim and diminish, okay? When you don't self-acknowledge, you have less of you in the world. You have less of you to you. You dim, you diminish, and you become like this little sad star, black hole thing, right? And that's not you. You are a bright, shiny, amazing invitation to the world, even if you never talk to anybody in the world, and we're getting to that. But it's like all of us have this amazing ability to shine bright We were not made to come here and suffer. We were made to come here and change things, to soothe, to invite, to excite. And self-acknowledgement is part of that, okay? So let me say again, we said just now what happens when you don't acknowledge, that you get less of you and you diminish. So let's look at again at what happens when you do self-acknowledge. Not the boastful and bragging, but when you do self-acknowledge. The energy expands. Because I mean, even look at it you do with your body. If you're like hiding or you're not self-acknowledging, what do? You're like, you contract, right? Your body contracts, the energy contracts. But when you have that ability to self-acknowledge, what do? You go, hi, here I am. And I don't know about you, but almost every one of us makes a living interacting and being with other people. I have yet to find a job that doesn't involve other people, even if it's their buying. Some people are like, well, if you're a writer, you didn't have to work with other people. They buy your books, okay? So I have yet to find anything that you quote unquote do for a living that doesn't involve other people. So if you're trying to sell anything or promote anything, guess what? You need to be seen to be able to have them buy from you, right? And so when you self-acknowledge, not boastful or brag, but when you self-acknowledge, your energy expands and people can see you. The universe can see you. And guess what? It also raises yourself, your receiving. Because guess what? I'm not just talking about like people will buy things from you, but it's like, oh, the universe goes, there's that bright, shiny person that I knew you were. Here, I have all of this for you. You were hiding before, but here, I have all this to deliver to you. And so your receiving amps up. Great. Thank you. And then your life might actually get easier. But shh, don't tell anyone. Because I know everybody wants the life of suffering. No, I know, not you. That's why you're listening to this. Okay? So maybe one of the first things you can do is self-acknowledge and be like, yeah, I'm already ready for this to change because this piqued my interest today. This podcast with this crazy chick who makes faces and does voices and talks a lot with her hands, it intrigued me today. And that is, my friends, one of the things you need to self-acknowledge is that some of that change you're already asking for, you're already creating, or you wouldn't have been intrigued by this podcast. You wouldn't be listening. You wouldn't be like, what does that crazy chick have to say? Right? You wouldn't. You would go right over it. So that is also one of the powers of self-acknowledgement, is you have to be able to be like, I created this, I did this. Okay? And here's another thing. We have been taught to wait for others to acknowledge us. Because on the same vein as we can't self-acknowledge because it's boastful or it's bragging, well, then if we can't self-acknowledge, we have to wait for other people to acknowledge us. Therefore, we are constantly waiting. Because here's the kicker. Here's one of those loop-de-loo loops that we get ourselves caught into, is when we don't, like I said, what happens when we don't acknowledge? You diminish, you hide, you're not visible. Well, then people can't even see you to acknowledge you. Let that sit in for a second. Let it just settle in. Like, oh, what? Yeah. When you cannot self-acknowledge, people can't see you, so they can't acknowledge you. And then you are caught in that endless loop of waiting for somebody to see you so they can acknowledge you, to validate what you already know about you. But you have been told that if you validate or say that or self-acknowledge it, you're being boastful or you're being bragging, when you're really just going, hey, this is what I'm able to do. Hey, this is what I'm able to accomplish. Look what I did. Isn't it exciting? Okay? We have been taught to wait until people acknowledge us. But then we hide and they can't acknowledge us. And then we stay in that loop of waiting and doubting ourselves. Anybody else ever doubt yourself? Yeah. Okay. Stop waiting for other people to acknowledge you. When you acknowledge you, you put that energy out into the world, And then, yeah, other people have the ability to acknowledge you, but then it's a bonus. It's not a validation. It's just a, oh, thanks. Thanks for seeing that too. Isn't it cool? All right, thank you. Right? It's a bonus. It's not the validation. We can't wait for other people to validate us. And I'm not saying this in an egotistical way. It's just so many people I've worked with, myself included, have been waiting for other people to validate us. And they're so distracted and in their own world, they can't even see us. So my friends, allow yourself to self-acknowledge so that you can actually be an invitation to others as well. All right, so we're going to go on our next commercial break. And when we come back, I have some quick little suggestions of things to self-acknowledge. And we're also going to talk about true, genuine acknowledgement of others. You know, I teased that a little bit at the very beginning because I'm not saying never acknowledge other people. Absolutely. But there's an energy required there too to be a genuine acknowledgement. That is not just a boastful or bragful thing, because can you boast and brag by acknowledging other people? Yes, in a very weird way. But that happens a lot. All right. So when we come back, like I said, I'll give you suggestions of what, when, and how to self-acknowledge, and then what it is to genuinely acknowledge another person, place, or thing. All right. So you are watching or listening to the Exploration of Wonder with me, your host, Donnielle, and fellow explorer, and you are watching or listening on the Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back.
Ever feel like there's more to life than meets the eye? A sense of wonder just beyond your grasp? Are you ready to create a life that inspires you so much that each day you are excited to wake up and live it? Join Donnielle Carter, a nationally board-certified health and wellness coach, weekly as she explores the universe on the exploration of wonder. Explore everything from harnessing the power of your mindset to connecting with your intuition and harnessing the energetic forces around us. With a blend of humor, warmth, directness, and a dash of cheekiness, Donnielle shares easy-to-use, pragmatic, yet magical techniques you can implement immediately to infuse your life with wonder. Join us as we navigate the fascinating landscapes of the seen and unseen, and together create lives filled with joy, purpose, and boundless possibility.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Exploration of Wonder with your guide, Donnielle. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to hello@donnielle.com. Now back to the exploration.
Welcome back to the Exploration of Wonder with me, your host, Donnielle. And, I never do talk about that this is live. And just like the promo said right before this, I am live every Monday, most Mondays, at 2 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what time's in Europe. I'm sorry. And I know I have a lot of people all over the world who listen. So welcome. Hello. So you can actually join me live. There's a chat room, and there is that I see all the messages that the producers in. And so, yeah, come have a good time. I love that it's on replays everywhere so we can listen, because we all got stuff going on. But if you do ever want to join us live, that would be a lot of fun too. All right, so today we're talking about the power and necessity of self-acknowledgement and how to really dispel the myth that if we say anything about ourselves, that it's a bragging and that you're just boastful. And it's just simply not true, my friends. We went into that acknowledgement is just basically the sharing of knowledge, or like what you did. It's like, look what I created. I built this. I had this, right? Whatever it is. And that the boastful or bragful is what was exactly the superior? The arrogance, presumption, pride, and vanity, right? Yeah, we can all do that occasionally, but that's not what we do all the time. And so we have to be able to self-acknowledge, because when we don't self-acknowledge, we contract our universes, and then we're always restarting, we're always rebooting, we're always going, okay, I need to start that. Because here are some things, like I have some tips and tricks for like really the self-acknowledgement, because whenever I do a private session, almost every session, no matter how many times, if it's the first session I've done with them or the 100th session I've done with them, I'll be like, hey, can you acknowledge that for a second? And they're like, what? And I'm like, acknowledge that for a second, please. Why am I always telling people to acknowledge that? I'm like, hey, no, stop, look at that, acknowledge that. Why? Because this is the way we actually continue on further down the path. Okay, when we don't self-acknowledge, we're always going, I need to start that. We don't have a foundation. We don't have anything to be like, to stand on to take the next step. We're not building that ladder or climbing that mountain. We're always just staying at the base going, hopefully someday I'll get up there. But we don't. But when we self-acknowledge, that energy keeps flowing, and then they are able to take a step up the ladder, up the mountain. And so whatever the end result, the target is that much closer when we do the self-acknowledgement, okay? So in my list of things to self-acknowledge, the first one, obvious, the big things. You've met your weight target, your savings target, etc. But how many of us are only told that we can self-acknowledge at the end? That's one of the biggest myths I want to dispel right now, because it doesn't help the energy, is that only say you did it, only self-acknowledge at the end. And this is where a lot of people stop themselves. They wait until the end to celebrate and acknowledge instead of doing it along the way. Doing it along the way, just like I said about climbing that mountain with each step, it makes that next step possible. It makes those long-term end result goals or targets even more close and more possible and happen faster, because we've given ourselves a foundation to grow from, to step on with. So absolutely the big things, but you have to do it along the way as well. Even if I post on social media sometimes, I'm like, hey, acknowledge and celebrate the day, even if it's just you got out of bed. Because I get, my friends, sometimes that's the biggest step for some of us, is just to get out of bed. Congratulations, you got out of bed and you took a shower. That's fantastic. I'm not even joking with that. I know some people have a level of depression where getting out of bed and getting showered is a huge accomplishment. Acknowledge that and celebrate it, okay? Excuse me. And another place where you can self-acknowledge is when you change your environment. What do I mean by that? Have you ever said, well, that was a coincidence? Or, wow, that was lucky. You know what? It wasn't luck. It wasn't a coincidence. It was you changing the environment around you. Okay. I had a client several years ago who told me this story of like a burglar broke into her house, and her mother was assaulted, knocked unconscious, and then when it got to her, she was a teenager at the time. When it got to her, she looked at him and went, "No, stop." And he was so flummoxed that he actually left the house. And I'm like, can you acknowledge that you changed your environment in that? She's like, what are you talking about? I said, you went and changed the energy from like, oh yeah, attack me, to like, I will take you down with me. Stop. And so she changed her environment. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing like somebody breaking in. It could simply be like you walked into a party and it was suddenly happier, right? So you have to acknowledge when you change your environment. Sometimes it's even the physical environment, but at least the energy environment, you need to acknowledge that as well, okay? Another thing you can self-acknowledge about is when you work your magic, okay? And if you haven't listened to my show on Science Proves Magic's Real and is True, check it out. It's a fun one. Anyways, but when self-acknowledge when you work magic. Have you ever had something show up where it shouldn't have been or somewhere you've already looked? Yeah, you created that, okay? Remember, I said when we do this self-acknowledgement, what we're doing is we're actually acknowledging and claiming that we create our environment, we create our world, that we are the creators. So when you do things like this, where it's like, oh yeah, I created that. Oh yeah, I created that. Yeah, I did that too. And we self-acknowledge these things, which is why in private sessions, I'm always like, hey, can you take a moment and acknowledge that you changed that you did that you created that you took that step? Can you, like, I had a session the other day and the woman's like, oh yeah, I created this in my job to where I get paid for the next 3 months. I don't even have to work. She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, stop. Can you acknowledge you created that? She's like, what? I'm like, celebrate that you created that. You have to acknowledge you created. Because remember, when you acknowledge these things, the energy expands. And so what had happened when she didn't acknowledge that she had created getting paid for 3 months without working that job, what it did, it diminished. And the self-doubt, the whatever, that really weird head tripping things comes in. But when I'm like, no, stop. Acknowledge that you created that. She's like, and she actually sat up straighter, which was the best part. She went, I did create that. I'm like, yeah. And as you guys can perceive, because energy is energy, whether you were there or not, her universe started expanding. And the universe is like, and I have more for you. Hold on. Because it is a co-creation with the universe. But you have to acknowledge that you had a hand in it, that you actually had a demand, a choice, a question, whatever it is. And so that the universe is going, okay, you're willing to do that? Okay, let's do more. And so her universe expanded. So when you work your magic, when you change your environment, you have to be able to go, I did that. And, a lot of people go, well, do I have to tell everybody? No, you don't have to tell everybody. It's this self-acknowledgement, the time is this acknowledgement to your universe of like, I created that, I did that, I changed that. Yeah. I was that potency, I was that change, right? And like one of my I used to travel a lot, and I was playing with this one time of being that potency and that changing the environment. And I was like, all this turbulence and stuff, and people are like freaking out. I'm like, okay, so if I'm the energy of freak out, that's going to invite other people to an energy of freak out. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to be space. How much can I expand? And then you know what? People actually started relaxing and laughing. And then what's interesting is the turbulence changed. How much of that self-acknowledgement of all of us changing that was able to allow the air to change as well, so the turbulence wasn't there, okay? And trust me, that's more of a contribution to the pilot than the other things. Then they're like, oh my gosh, right? All right, so fourth one is when you change a habit even 1%. Because a lot of people come to me in a class or a session because they're like, I want to change this. I want to change the communication with my body. I want to change the judgment. I want to, whatever it is, right? They're like, I want to change blah, blah, blah. And just like we've been taught to only change it at the end, if you change it 1%, you also need to acknowledge that. You need to be able to go, I changed it. It's just a little bit, but I changed it. Because what happens if we don't acknowledge that we changed it even 1%? We go backwards. That's when we diminish, when we dim ourselves, when we stop ourselves, we pull the energy back and contract. Well, that's no fun, okay? So you need to be able to change the habit. Even if you change it just 1% or whatever it is, change in any sort, you may desire more. I get that. And you may think it's not enough, but trust me, this is huge. Changing something sometimes the most difficult part is that first step. So you have to self-acknowledge, you have to celebrate and go, I did that, I changed that, I had that, okay? And then this last point is going to be a little confusing for people, I get, but when you see yourself doing what you've been judging yourself for, celebrate and acknowledge that, okay? Because a lot of people come when they are unaware that they're doing these things to themselves, that they're unaware of what their energy was doing, or their steps that they were taking were actually doing, or the steps they weren't taking were actually doing. And so even if you haven't quote unquote changed it, but you're like, oh crap, that's where I stopped myself. Oh, even if you haven't changed what stopped you, self-acknowledge that you can see it, because yesterday you didn't. That is something to be celebrated, okay? Because that means you're going down the path of changing whatever it is, because you're like, oh, I can see where I'm stopping myself. Yeah, I'm still judging myself, but I see it now. Huge celebration. I will throw you a party, because that is so exciting to be able to see yesterday what you couldn't see or weren't willing to see. Okay, so I know that one, let it settle in a little bit, but it's like, if you can acknowledge that you saw where you were stopping yourself as an example yesterday, you can see today, even if you don't choose something different, acknowledge that, baby. You are changing stuff just by that. All right, so we're going to take our last break, and then when we come back, I'll talk about that true acknowledgement of others, what that looks like, and how genuine acknowledgement changes the world. All right, my friends, you are listening or watching the Exploration of Wonder with me, your host, Donnielle, and your fellow explorer on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back.
Ever feel like there's more to life than meets the eye? A sense of wonder just beyond your grasp? Are you ready to create a life that inspires you so much that each day you are excited to wake up and live it? Join Donnielle Carter, a nationally board-certified health and wellness coach, weekly as she explores the universe on the exploration of wonder. Explore everything from harnessing the power of your mindset to connecting with your intuition and harnessing the energetic forces around us. With a blend of humor, warmth, directness, and a dash of cheekiness, Donnielle shares easy-to-use, pragmatic, yet magical techniques you can implement immediately to infuse your life with wonder. Join us as we navigate the fascinating landscapes of the seen and unseen, and together create lives filled with joy, purpose, and boundless possibility. This is the Exploration of Wonder with your guide, Donnielle. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to hello@donnielle.com. Now back to the exploration.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Exploration of Wonder. I am your host and fellow explorer, Donnielle, and today we're talking about the necessity and the power of self-acknowledgement and acknowledgement in general. And I hope you guys are getting to see where self-acknowledgement doesn't mean only bragging and boastful, that it actually is an energy that is nurturing and helps you create and claim your life and your universe, really. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about the self-acknowledgement, but really quickly I want to talk about true, genuine acknowledgement of others, okay? Because just like we, at the beginning of this show, where we were waiting for other people to acknowledge us, some people are still out there waiting for people to acknowledge them. And you might be that person that changes the world by acknowledging them, okay? But you have to do it from a place of true, genuine acknowledgement, not from a place of boastful or superiority, right? Not from the place of like, I'm going to acknowledge you because you are less than me and I think you need this and I'm just going to give you a little pat on the head. That energy isn't fun. They will want to throat punch you. They may not know why, because on the surface, they're like, oh, they're acknowledging me, isn't that nice? But when they acknowledge me, I want to throat punch them. Yeah, because you're being a superior jerkwad from that, okay? So true, genuine acknowledgement comes from a place of lighting you up, from expansion, from possibility, when you can look at them and go, that is fantastic. Good for you. I am so excited. You know, like I have a dear friend who's starting to run for a public office, and I am so stoked for him. Glad it's not me, but I am stoked for them. Which actually brings me to another point. It's like, if you're doing acknowledgement of other people, and you go, why do they get it? Or it should be me. Keep your mouth shut. Because trust me, acknowledging people with that energy is another sticky, just jerky energy that are going to make people want to throw punch you, because everybody's more energetically aware than they give themselves credit for. So they'll be aware of your jealousness. That's not true, genuine acknowledgement. True, genuine acknowledgement is celebrating what they've done, accomplished, or who they be. And I have a little secret for you. Come here, listen closely. I'm not even going to scream it at you. But let me state this very clearly. Acknowledging others does not diminish you. A lot of people think that there is only a limited amount of celebration and acknowledgement in the world, but true, genuine acknowledgement of others does not diminish you. It actually raises you. Like my mama used to say, and I know everybody used to say it, but it's a rising tide lifts all ships. So when you acknowledge, truly, genuine acknowledge others, their tide rises. They expand more out into the world. And then you expand more out into the world as well. You receive more. They receive more. And the universe gets bigger and brighter from true, genuine self-acknowledgement and true, genuine acknowledgement of others. Okay? There is more than enough of all of that to go around. All right? All right, my friends. So much more to say on this. I find it funny. There's always some topics I'm like, I don't know if I can say this for an hour, when the energy is like, do a topic on this. I'm like, okay. And then at the end, I'm like, and I want to say more. So I hope you guys are beginning to see where self-acknowledgement, doesn't have to be verbal, but it does have to be done. And that it's not about bragging and boasting. That's not self-acknowledgement. That's bragging and boasting. Okay. That is being that superior, that I'm better than you. I have more than you. I know more than you. No. That's not self-acknowledgement. That's being a jerkwad. Okay. True, genuine self-acknowledgement, true, genuine acknowledgement of others changes the world, changes your universe. You become possible of more, having more, being more, inviting more. And who knows what else is out there when you're able to acknowledge your magic, your potency. And that's why I said it's a necessity. Self-acknowledgement is not just like, oh, I'm going to get a massage and self-acknowledge. No. Self-acknowledgement is a necessity to your sanity, to your creation, to your life, to your hobbies, your targets, anything you're trying to do in your life. You need to self-acknowledge along the way so that they actually become more possible, actually become more viable. I have celebration parties in my private sessions. I have celebration parties as we go. I'm like, what can you acknowledge from this week? Because when they acknowledge, it carries them into the next week. It carries them into the next week and the week after that and the week after that and the week after that. All right, my friends? Hope you're beginning to see where the self-acknowledgement is vital, required, and expands and creates your universe and then makes more possible. All right. And check out my website, Donnielle.com. I always have so much going on. Classes, sessions. I do this amazing thing called Turning the Molecules a lot that I have so many topics on. And if you do desire a private session with me, I have this amazing new program called 90 Days to Actualize, where we do, I help you create whatever it is that you've been avoiding creating, and we party along the way. All right, my friends. So please do check it out. You can go to my website, Donnielle.com, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you for exploring with us today. Donnielle returns Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain, 1 p.m. Pacific. Until then, be curious, be wonder, and explore the magical universe around you.